Good afternoon. I'm Max Brantley with the Arkansas Times. It's Wednesday, June the 3rd, and news from Arkansas. Child abuse and treatment of child abuse victims is much in the news still today. The first thing I'd recommend you do is take a look at this week's Arkansas Times. There's a moving guest column from a person who was a victim of child sexual abuse, a case that went unreported and undealt with. And the point of the column is this: Arkansas sends a message that it condones child sexual abuse if it doesn't do something about people who don't act properly in cases of dealing with children. She refers to Republican legislator Justin Harris. She refers to former Republican legislator Jim Bob Duggar, in whose home multiple allegations of sexual molestation were reported, but nothing was reported to authorities and nothing was done about it. And in both cases, while there's been a great deal of concern about the legislators and whether they've been fairly treated, we've yet to hear a Republican colleague of either of these men rise to talk about victims and what's happened to them and what their interests are. It's going to be carried to a surreal extreme tonight on Fox News, where Megyn Kelly has said she's going to let Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar tell their story. She feels it's an outrage that this case has been written about. No word from her about the victims, no word about whether they've ever received counseling. There was new reporting today in In Touch Weekly from Washington County Sheriff's Department report that lays out in very clear terms what happened. On 3 separate occasions, Jim Bob Duggar received information about molestation in his home. On at least 7 different occasions with 5 different people. One case of a 5-year-old girl by a 15-year-old boy. Nothing was done. The police weren't notified. Counselors weren't called in. Nothing was done for the victim that's on any record. And these people went on to talk about the potential sexual molestation propensities, supposed, of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people. Something is not right when this can go uncommented on in Arkansas, the writer says, and I think she has a point worth reading. Elsewhere, news developed yesterday that the open carry weapons advocates in Arkansas are now pushing to sort of make open carry the law of Arkansas without it actually being the law of Arkansas. You may know that in 2013 there was a piece of legislation passed to clean up gun carry rules, at least insofar as On a Journey was concerned. That's now been interpreted by some, but not by others, to have legalized open carry in Arkansas. The open carry people says it's legal, you can take a gun anywhere, anytime, anyhow. They've quoted Lieutenant Governor Tim Griffin, who has no official role in the matter, and Attorney General Leslie Rutledge, who does, is saying they believe indeed open carry is now the law in Arkansas. You have to wonder why nothing was said during the regular legislative session or the special legislative session to clear this up. Leslie Rutledge says the matter ought to be cleared up by the legislature. Where was she in 2015? I think there was a plot afoot here to kind of get this done in sort of an ex post, in just in a way that it just was, without having to bring up the difficult issues, because legalizing open carry isn't necessarily popular. The legislature defeated an open carry bill in 2013. It carries other consequences on treatment of weapons in Arkansas, and so perhaps they'd rather just kind of do it by coercion and bullying, but not really by the law of the land. Let's have a vote. Let's have guns in the legislature. That'll make us all safer, won't it, legislators? We're going to have a piece on the Arkansas blog this afternoon about a weird instance when a gas pipeline blew up on the Arkansas River Monday night, spewed some gas into the air, and it's forced closure of the Arkansas River. We've got a picture of that explosion taken from high up in a Little Rock building that night, and I think it'll be interesting. Benji Hardy has more to report on that. Let's go to some good news for a change, or at least good news by my lights. One thing tomorrow, Allegiant Airlines is going to announce a twice-a-week nonstop flight from Little Rock to Los Angeles International Airport. This is geared, as their flights to Orlando are, as the people going to Disneyland and that sort of thing. I'm always happy when you can get direct to a major transportation destination without having to pass through Atlanta or Chicago or Dallas to get there. That's a good thing. I've been happy to read on the web that Mike Huckabee is becoming a joke, at least in a lot of quarters in his presidential campaign, with his outlandish comments, trying to make a joke out of Caitlyn Jenner and talking about doing a bad riff on Porky's by saying he wished he could be in a girl's gym room, shower room, and say he was a girl so he could peek at him. It wasn't funny. It's not a circumstance that calls for humor, and he's being called out on it. Of course, this may appeal to Republican primary voters. You just don't know. I have a letter today that I published on the blog from a teacher at Jefferson Elementary School. People who follow the Little Rock School District know that one of Dexter Suggs' last acts as superintendent, and one of the things that led to his forced departure, was a witch hunt he mounted against some employees at Jefferson Elementary School, supposedly for not following the rules and having a summer enrichment program for children. He was wrong. He was working on a private agenda on it. Well, Baker Curtis, who's now superintendent, has sent a letter with a full-fledged apology to the teachers who were made subject to Dexter Suggs' witch hunt. The irony of all this is this really was the episode that caused Suggs' downfall. He went after school at which a man named Matt Campbell has a child. Matt Campbell has Blue Hog Report. He uncovered the news of Dexter Suggs' plagiarism. Funny how your bad deeds can come back to bite you sometimes. Finally, a small report from me of personal privilege. I went to Boise State yesterday, as I mentioned, and spoke, as I have every year for 23 years now, and laid out my usual liberal agenda, and as usual got a great deal of pushback from a generally conservative audience. But we polled the question of same-sex marriage in two different ways, and the votes were just about evenly split for and against same-sex marriage. I'd prefer, of course, a vote for same-sex marriage, but this is a sea change. A person who was at Boise State in 2006 wrote me a note afterwards and said, you know, when you spoke there to me in 2006, right after you said you supported marriage equity, I was about to clap, but I was drowned out by the boos of everybody in the audience. So a move to a 50-50 split is a very good thing, as I wrote somewhere last night. I drove back from, and by the way, I was greeted afterwards by a trans student from the UCA who'd come to the speech and who wanted to express support for the comfort that we've given her from some of our coverage of these issues. It made the trip worthwhile. I drove back from Conway humming Bob Dylan. The times, they are changing. I'm Max Brantley. I'll be back tomorrow.